let me ask you this. I want to talk about your book. And I know it's a lot of things that people might not be familiar with as far as your personal life, but talk about the struggles that you faced as an activist, because that's kind of like I recently learned that there's a high suicide rate amongst preachers, and people might not fully they
Yeah.
don't think probably wouldn't think that, but there's
Yeah.
a lot of preachers that go through depression. There's a lot of preachers that have different things that they're fighting, right? So okay, you as an activist, a lot of times people think activist is like, you're like the super holy person. You have no problems. You kind of like you're the guiding light that we're looking to, right?
Mhm.
But you are a person just like anybody else is a person, right?
Right.
So talk about some of the struggles that you face as far as that people that aren't fully locked in with you might not know, and how you've actually been able to grow from that.
Well, and this is my lovely book right here that was being referenced in this conversation. This is, and this right here, the cover really kind of, that the cover really kind of describes what you're talking about. Um, the reason why I wrote this book, I Live to Tell the Story, is because I wanted people to know that behind cameras, behind bullhorns, microphones, big crowds, news articles, Instagram, all of that stuff, it's just a human person. I'm just like everybody else, dealing with the same life consequences, circumstances, situations that everyone else is dealing with. So, sometimes I have heartbreak, relationships don't work. I'm raising a son. Well, now he feels he's fully raised. He's 26 years old. He still needs a little raising. But nonetheless, my son is doing extremely well as a dad and a family man. And I'm very proud of him. But it took a lot of work to get him to that point, right? Because his father has been deceased since my son was 2 years old. So for 24 years, I've been raising him and working with him on my own, except with the assistance of people who voluntarily stepped up to support. And so I know a lot of single mothers out here and single fathers who relate to some of my very real stories in this book about what I've been through. There have been times when I've had money, and there's been times when I have been completely broke. Meanwhile, I look cute because you keep your clothes in the cleaners and keep them nice and neat. Don't throw them in the washing machine, and that means that later on you can circle back to an outfit and it looks like it's brand new, right? So everybody see you out and they like, oh, she fly. No money, no money in the bank, trying to figure out how I'm gonna pay my car note, how I'm gonna have, groceries. That has happened. And I'm not talking about something that happened to me in 2005. I'm talking about 2019, again, a little bit in 2003, right? I have been through these cycles of one, not having the knowledge that I have now about what to do with money when I do have it, right?
Yeah.
And also, and I credit you all a lot for helping to make me focus on that. Of course, I have to give also a shout out to my brother Jay Morrison, who was one to start me to thinking about, like, as an activist, you're not supposed to die broke. That's not like, that doesn't have to be your reality. He was the first person that ever said that to me, and I'm like, oh, you know what? That's true. I can invest. I can buy stocks. I can actually think about something other than trauma every day. These are all things that's in this book. And then, of course, when you talk about the suicide rate, while I never, ever claimed being suicidal, but I will say that at the worst times in my life, and we talked about this the other day, Rashad, when I was labeled anti-Semitic, and, everybody that you could think of that I thought would stand with me turned their backs, didn't want to work with me, didn't want to talk to me. It was the worst time of my life, especially knowing that we built the Women's March and it was being torn to pieces over something that was a false accusation. And it was so clear that there were outside interests involved in, again, ruining what we were building. We end up learning this in 2004, maybe the beginning of 2004, late 2003. The New York Times, which, by the way, they published an article from a woman who says that I walked into a meeting and started talking about that the Jews controlled the slave trade. And she says that I came into a meeting with people and just started talking about this, which was a damn bold-faced lie. Bold-faced lie. But they published an article and allowed her to say all of these things about us. Come years later, here they come back with another article that says, actually, we did some research and the bots started these rumors and people lied on them, and they came back with an expose, stuff that they helped create and how they were a part of ruining our movement. So anyway, at the end of all of that, dealing with all the stress, everything you could think of, childhood trauma, sexual abuse, all types of things that I've been through. And no, when I was a child, my parents did not, my father, my uncle, nobody sexually assaulted me, but I went through things out in the world, school, and with other young men that I was involved with. All of that stuff has never been addressed because, you know, people tell you don't go to therapy. You crazy if you need medication. You're crazy if you need to sit on somebody's couch. Something is wrong with you. You weak. And I didn't think that I needed therapy. I didn't even understand that the work that I do every single day, you must be in therapy. You got to be talking to somebody, to be getting up every day, going out here, standing up for people, looking at dead bodies, you know, watching videos of people being murdered, and then being judged by your own people and calling yourself trying to fight against the oppressor. If you don't get some help with that, you crumble, being suicidal, even if you claim it. And so a big part of this story is that I ended up in 2000, and it was between 2018 is when it started. And I finally got some help in 2019. I started taking Xanax, took 1, 2 pills, 3 pills of Xanax, and was like, makes me feel groggy. Let me figure something else out. Next thing you know, I was on Percocets. And then before you know it, it was 20 to 30 pills in a day that I was taking. And again, I didn't say I was suicidal, but that sounds pretty suicidal to y'all, right?
And that's because of the insomnia, right?
It was, I couldn't sleep. Trying to sleep at night is still a challenge for me. But now I have an actual therapist who works with me on what to do. So simple things, because some folks would say, well, you got to do it natural. You know, we don't take medicine, because that's another falsehood in our community, that you're not supposed to take medicine. Well, I have to do both things. So for me, a natural remedy is that I can't have a Pepsi at night before it's time for me to go to sleep. I can't be eating cookies and cakes and whatnot, because that gets me going. So that's a natural piece. But the anxiety that I deal with, that cannot be treated just by me dealing with my diet. That is something that has to be treated by a professional. And I take that seriously now. But at the time, I thought that taking those pills was going to help me numb it. And all it did was create an additional problem.
So you was taking 30 Percocets a day?
Yes, sir. Yes.
That seems like a lot. That seems like a lot.
Well, let me tell you how it happens. If you take 3 pills 10 times a day, that's not really as many as you think, right? You in the morning, and then late morning, and then early afternoon, and then later in the afternoon, and then evening time, and then late night. I mean, I'm already up to about 7 times right there, right? Yeah. And I said somewhere between 20 and 30. So 20 is a day when I still have to work. So I got to function. And so it's a little less that day. I'm taking them in the morning when I'm waking up, trying to get another nap. If I'm on a flight, popping 3 pills before the flight takes off, resting for that period of time, you know, being whatever. Then you get off. Maybe I got to rush to something, but as soon as it's over, I don't want to socialize. I don't want to go to, to whatever everybody else wants to do. And they noticed this about me, but they thought that, and when I say they, I'm talking about Linda, my son, Carmen, all the people who were working around me. They thought I was just miserable from all of what was happening at that time. They had no idea that the reason why I wanted to be in a dark room with the curtains closed was because I was self-medicating. I was actually getting high, which in many ways, taking Percocets at that level is a cousin of heroin. That's what it is. Like, you know, it's a lot of people that would struggle to say that. And I wasn't always comfortable saying it until I went to this psychiatrist one time. I tried to detox on my own without going to rehab, which is where I eventually went. But when I tried to do it on my own at home, I went to this psychiatrist. I looked him up, found him in the yellow pages at the, whatever I call it, yellow pages. Y'all know what I mean. I'm dating myself over here. So anyway, found his number, went to him, and he prescribed something called Suboxone to me.
That's what they give you. That's like that's the thing that wean you off of the pills, right?
That's what's supposed to wean you off. But the thing is, when I researched it, I found out that Suboxone has a similar effect to the Percocets, that basically you could get addicted to Suboxone also. So you get off one thing and on to something else. And I didn't want that. So that's why I eventually called the NBA All-Star Jason Williams. And when I called him and told him, eventually I told him the truth that I needed help, and he put me in a program under an alias. So that's how I went in for a quick download. But the funny thing is that when I went to meet with this psychiatrist, I'm sitting there and I'm doing the Whitney. I don't smoke crack. Like, he's asking me all these different questions. And I'm like, I don't do this and I don't do that. And he laughs and said, it's interesting to me that so many people show up here and believe that because they're doing something that might cost more money or it looks different, that they're somehow different from other addicts. Meanwhile, you're an addict. Like, that's it. You're looking for the same feeling. You just don't want to shoot a needle in your arm, but you're still taking something that has the exact same impact as this other drug that you look down on people for. So it took me some time to be able to accept that that's what it was, but that's what it was. It would knock me out. And what do we know? We know that when people take heroin, they go down for a while, right? And so, 20 pills on a day when I was busy, 30 pills on a weekend or a day when I had nothing to do. And all I had to do was just sit there and soak in my misery and try to stay sleeping. Because who the hell wants to wake up and your name is in the newspaper with a different story about you being anti-Semitic, about you hating gay people, about the possible misappropriation of funds, Black people saying you think you all that, people telling you need to denounce a Black leader. Like, who wants to wake up all
constant attack?
Yeah, it's too much. It's too much.
In those moments, like, did you ever have the thought, because I've had it, like, maybe doing all this work is not worth it?
Yeah.
And when you did, how did you work your way out of it to stay focused on the goal?
Well, I've been asked this a lot, Ian. I think that having a calling on your life is very different from a passion.
Absolutely.
When you have a passion, you can fall out of love with it. You could be like, I ain't doing that shit no more. But when you have a calling, you could be 50 miles away from something and your mind can't get away from it, right? Your intention still somehow leads back to that. And I always liken it to, I've been in relationships where, I wake up in the morning and I'm with the same dude and I'm like, how the hell did I get back here in this with you? You know what I'm saying? Like, I said this was.
You said I'm done, but
I was done. Now, at a good night, I went to, Rashad's birthday party somewhere.
What a vibe. What a vibe.
one of y'all's things, something cute. I'm up in Brooklyn Chop House, we drinking, and next thing you know, you back, So that's how the movement has been for me. Because in those bad moments, I swear to you, I have been gone. I done found jobs. I have figured out I'm an impeccable event planner. That's what I do, right? I don't know why this thing doesn't want to be right here. That's what I do, right? I do events. I'm very good at it. I'm the type of person, when I walk in a room, if the flowers at somebody's party ain't right, I'm over there like, oh my God, please, Lord, let me fix the flowers. I can't, until I could get to straighten one of them out. The whole night, my mind is on that. That's what I do. I have attention to detail. My skills are transferable. So if as someone who is an organizer, and this is what I mean, I'm an organizer, I'm a strategist, I can use those skills anywhere. A company that hires me will get a super good employee or leader because I know how to reach the Black community. I understand marketing. I understand, raising the value of a potential customer to bring them into a business, an organization, a concept. Like, I do that work every single day, because how else would we be able to create a Breonna Taylor movement from a woman who was shot and killed 2 months before, no one paying her attention at all, and somehow we figure out what to do to bring attention to her situation? Because that's another thing. People seem to think that we show up where the cameras are. There was no cameras in Kentucky when we got
there. Yep.
zero cameras. We bought
brought
cameras.
the coverage. Yep.
Exactly. Matter of fact, our cell phones, Instagram was the first thing. That was the first time that she was getting international attention off of our phones. So with that being said, I have thought many times I could take these skills and go work for a bunch of people, because before I became controversial, right? Before it became that I was unemployable, I knew everybody. I knew the folks at Moet and Hankin. I knew folks at you name the companies. Pepsi. I had been in their boardrooms. I was there when they started working on. It's funny, when they were putting their DEI programs and strengthening the DEI initiatives within Pepsi. I was there. I was in the room, in the meetings, right? So I could go back to those people and go work for and become a diversity, equity, and inclusion. What are they? The chief diversity officers. I could have done all of that before I became too controversial. And there were many times when I thought about it. I had job offers, I had opportunities. I could go work for the government. I was ready. But somehow or another, when Black folk, because that's what always happens, Black people piss me off real good. You know, the judgment, the comments, this one
hate. Yeah.
Why she dressed like that? Why she got a weave in her head? She ain't real. She worked for George Soros, whatever. I get mad and be like, you know what?
I'm done.
I'm out.
Yep.
Like, I'm
out.
gone.
Yep.
I got it. You can do it better than me. You take it from here.
You do it.
I'm gonna go make some money. Okay, let me go do that. And you know what happens? Just like that man, I wake up the next morning. I'm like, why am I in Tallahassee, Florida, somewhere on the back road doing this and that? And I said I wasn't going to do this anymore, but that calling pulls me, and I just have to accept. And I finally have accepted. I ain't going nowhere. This is who I am. Yeah. This is what I believe in. This is where I feel that I am most purposeful, and I'm going to continue on this path until the day I die.